Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Need not to remind, switch on your camera and sit. So here comes the part 2 of your book, Power of Habit. Now, individual habit is done. अब इस पार्ट से हम लोग पढ़ेंगे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में. द हैबिट ऑफ सक्सेसफुल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. कि आपकी कुछ कुछ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऐसा क्या की रूट है जो सक्सेसफुल हो जाती है और कुछ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन आउट ऑफ द मार्केट हो जाती है. ठीक है. इस चैप्टर में आप लोग चैप्टर 4 है, टाइटल कीस्टोन हैबिट और द बैलेड ऑफ फॉलोइंग, व्हिच हैबिट्स मैटर मोस्ट. इस चैप्टर में आप लोग देखेंगे कि कैसे ये अल्कोआ एक कंपनी है यहाँ पे, ठीक है, जो अल्मुनियम की कंपनी है. फाइन. ये अभी तक समझिए कंटिन्यूसली लॉस में ही जा रही है, लॉस मेकिंग कंपनी है. इसके सीईओ अब चेंज हुए हैं. उनके बारे में ये स्टोरी है कि कैसे सीईओ का नाम है पॉल ओनेल. ठीक है, इन्हीं की ये स्टोरी है. कैसे एक की स्टोन हैबिट को पकड़ के उन्होंने पूरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का कायाकल्प कर दिया. ठीक है, पूरा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अब हो चुका था आपका प्रॉफिट मेकिंग कंपनी इनके रिजीम. राइट. तो यही कंप्लीटली इसी स्टोरी पे बेस्ड है. इसके अलावा एक ओलंपिक प्लेयर के बारे में है, माइकल फेल्प. इनके बारे में भी ये स्टोरी है. तो फर्स्ट पार्ट में आप पोलोनेल के बारे में पढ़ेंगे. सेकेंड पार्ट में ओलंपिक गेम में जो खेल रहे थे माइकल पॉल, ठीक है, माइकल फेल्प्स, ठीक है, उनके बारे में है कि कैसे इन्होंने कौन से की स्टोन हैबिट को पकड़ा जो आपका पोलोनेल प्रॉफिट मेकिंग कंपनी बना दिया अल्मोनियम को, और अपना माइकल फेल्प्स ओलंपिक गेम में विनर हो चुका. ठीक है, वो इस चैप्टर में हम लोग देखेंगे. फाइन. ये दिमाग में रखते हुए समझते समझते आप पढ़िए, कहीं दिक्कत होगी तो पूछिएगा. अमृता, स्टार्ट. Need to switch on your camera and please.
On a blustery October day in 1987, a herd of prominent Wall Street investor and stock analysts gathered in a ballroom of a push Manhattan hotel. They were there to meet the new CEO of the Aluminum Company of America, or ALOCA, as it was known.
Alcoa.
Come on.
Alcoa.
Alcoa, as it was known a corporation that wraps harshly kisses and the metal in a Coca-Cola cans to the bolts that hold satellites together.
कंपनी वो दिया हुआ है रैप, हर्सी किसेस, वो जो चॉकलेट आता है उसका रैप बनाने का काम, या फिर जो कोका कोला का जो मेटल है वो बनाने का काम, वो कैन जो होता है वो बनाने का काम, ये सारा काम इसका जो अल्कोआ कंपनी है वो करती थी. ठीक है.
Alcoa founder had invented the process for smelting aluminium a century earlier, and since then the company had become one of the largest on earth. Many of the people in the audience had invested millions of dollars in Alcoa stock and had enjoyed a steady return. In the past year, however, investor grumbling started. Alcoa management had made misstep after misstep, unwisely trying to expand into new product line while competitors stole customer and profits away. So there had been a palpable sense of relief when Alcoa board announced it was time for new leadership. That relief, though, turned to unease When the choice of announced, the new CEO would be a former government bureaucrat named Paul O'Neill. Many of Wall Street had never heard of him. When Alcoa scheduled this meet and greet at the Manhattan ballroom, every major investor asked for an invitation. A few minutes before noon, O'Neill took the stage. He was 51 years old, trim and dressed in a grey pen strips and a red power tie. His hair was white and his posture military straight. He bounced up the step and smiled warmly. He looked dignified, solid, confident, like a chief executive. Then he opened his mouth. I want to talk to you about safety. He said every year numerous Alcoa worked are injured so badly that they missed a day of work. Our safety record is better than the general American workforce, especially considering that our employees work with metal that are 1500 degrees and machines that can rip a man arm off. But it's not good enough. I intend to make Alcoa the safest company in America. I intend to go for zero injuries.
ओके फाइन, यहाँ तक क्या समझ में आया?
मैम उसमें एक आदमी रहता है जिसका मतलब हुलिया एक आर्मी जैसा रहता है जिसने एक रेड टाई पहना रहता है और फिर और क्या
वो आदमी कौन है?
मैम वो चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव रहता है
ठीक है,
और वो बोल आई वांट टू टॉक टू यू अबाउट वर्कर सेफ्टी। मैम उससे कुछ बात करनी रहती है किसी सेफ्टी के मतलब किसी वर्कर सेफ्टी को लेके जो एक
यही यहाँ पे मेन चीज है जो की स्टोन हैबिट को जिक्र कर रहा है। पोलो नेल ने कुछ प्रॉफिट के मैटर पे कुछ डिस्कशन किया ही नहीं। फर्स्ट मीटिंग एंड ही स्टार्टेड टॉकिंग अबाउट वर्कर सेफ्टी। ठीक है, प्रॉफिट का कैसे कॉस्ट कटिंग करे। जैसे अगर लॉस मेकिंग कंपनी तो जनरली क्या डिस्कशन होना चाहिए, कैसे हम कॉस्ट कटिंग कर सकते हैं, कैसे मान लीजिए एम्प्लॉय को कैसे जो यूजफुल नहीं है एम्प्लॉय को हटाने की बात होती है। आप प्रेशर रियलाइज करिए थोड़ा कि अगर किसी कंपनी में कंटिन्यूस प्रॉफिट नहीं हो रहा है, कंटिन्यूस लॉस मेकिंग कंपनी है, तो हम लोग कॉस्ट कटिंग की बात करेंगे ना, सिनर्जी की बात करते हैं, राइट साइजिंग की बात करते हैं। ये सब मैनेजमेंट का आगे देखेंगे, ये सारा बज वर्ड है। ठीक है, तो वही चीज बोला जा रहा है कि ये सारा कुछ बात नहीं करके इन्होंने क्या किया, वर्कर की सेफ्टी के बारे में बात की। ठीक है, इन्होंने ये बताया कि अगर यहाँ पे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में कंटिन्यूस वर्कर बीमार पड़ रहे हैं, इंजरी हो रहे हैं किसी ना किसी कारण से, ठीक है, वर्किंग कल्चर को लेकर के, लेकिन यहाँ पे इन्होंने फोकस किया वर्कर सेफ्टी पे, ना कि सिनर्जी या राइट साइजिंग या कॉस्ट कटिंग। ठीक है, अंडरस्टूड। अब यहाँ से पढ़िए,
Yes, ma'am.
सुरभि आप पढ़िए।
The audience was confused. These meetings usually followed a predictable script. A new CEO would start with an introduction, make a make a fox self
ये आवाज
deprecating joke, something about how he slept his
बाकी को आवाज क्लियर आ रही है?
yes ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
इधर तो ब्रेक हो रहा है, एक सेकंड। Okay, now you can start. Audience was confused.
The audience was confused. These meetings usually followed a predictable script. A new CEO would start with an introduction, make a Fox self-deprecating joke, something about how he slept his way through Harvard Business School, then promise to boost from profits and lower costs. Next would come an excoriation of taxes, business regulations, and sometimes with a fervor that suggested first-hand experience in divorce court. Lovers, finally, the speech would end with a blizzard of buzzwords. Synergy,
अच्छा ये
right?
वर्ड है वो आपके मैनेजमेंट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी इम्पोर्टेंट है. डू यू नो दिस वर्ड सिनर्जी? व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय दैट?
No, no.
Anyone can answer? Rohit Singh, have you heard about this word synergy?
Sorry, ma'am.
देखिए दो कंपनी है, एक का टेक्नोलॉजी के मामले में बहुत स्ट्रांग है, ठीक है, बट उसके पास फाइनेंस उतना नहीं हो पा रहा है. दूसरी कंपनी है जो फाइनेंशियली बहुत साउंड है. दो कंपनी आपस में मर्ज कर गई एंड दिस टाइप ऑफ मर्जिंग इज सेड एज सिनर्जी. ठीक है, दो कंपनी आपस में मर्ज कर गई, किसी के अंदर के कुछ और स्किल है, किसी के अंदर कुछ और स्किल है. ठीक है, इस टाइप का अगर मर्जिंग होता है तो उसको हम सिनर्जी कहते हैं. ठीक है, गॉट इट. अब नेक्स्ट अगेन ये मैनेजमेंट का ही टर्म है, राइट साइजिंग. राइट साइजिंग मतलब एम्प्लॉय के बारे में बात हो रही है कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ना ज्यादा एम्प्लॉय हो ना कम एम्प्लॉय, प्रॉपर साइज हो जो कि कॉस्ट को भी ना बढ़ाए. ठीक है, और मेरे इन्वेस्टमेंट की तरह काम करे. राइट साइजिंग मतलब क्या, ना ज्यादा ना कम. ये एम्प्लॉय पर्सपेक्टिव से बात हो रही है, और कंपटीशन वगैरह तो आप जानते ही हैं. ठीक है, बढ़िया. आगे
Competition, at which point everyone could return to their offices reassured that capitalism was safe for another day. O'Neill hadn't said anything about profits. He did not mention taxes. There was no talk of using alignment to achieve a win synergistics market advantage. For all anyone in the audience knew, given his talk of worker safety, O'Neill might be pro-regulation or was a Democrat. It was terrifying prospect. Now, before I go any further, O'Neill said, I want to point out the safety exists in this room. He gestured to the rear of the ballroom. There's a couple of doors in the back, and in the unlikely event of a fire or other emergency, you should calmly walk out. Go down the stairs to the lobby and leave the building. Silence. The only noise was the hum of traffic through the windows. Safety. Fire exists. Was this a joke? One investor in the audience knew that O'Neill had been in Washington, D.C. during the 60s. Guy must have done a lot of drugs, he thought. Eventually, someone raised a hand and asked about inventories in the aerospace division. Another asked about the company's capital raisings. I'm not certain you
from your
heard me.
Ishkar, you read from here. I'm not certain you heard me.
I'm not certain you heard me, O'Neill said. If you want to understand how Alexco is doing, you need to look.
अगेन मान लो मैं जब मैं कंपनी का नाम पूछूंगी और टाइटल का नाम पूछूंगी नहीं बता पाए तो दिक्कत होगा. तो these are main thing in this chapter. Remember the name of the person, name of the company, name of the title of this story.
You need to look at our workplace safety figure. If we bring our injury rate down, it would not be. हमको ये आ गया. एक सेकंड.
Rohit Singh. You read.
Yes, ma'am.
Alcoa is doing.
Al- Alcoa is doing. You need to look at our workplace safety figures. If we bring our injury rates down, it won't be because of cheerleading or the nonsense you sometimes hear from other CEOs. It it will be because individuals at this company have agreed to become part of something important. They will devoted themselves to creating a habit of excellence. Safety will be an indicator that we are making progress in changing our habits across the entire institution. That's how we should be judged. The investor in the room almost stamped out the doors when the presentation ended. One jogged to the lobby, found a pay phone, and called his 20 largest clients. I said the board put a crazy happy in a charge, and he's 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 going to going to kill the company. That investor told me. I ordered them to sell their stock immediately before everyone else in the room started calling their clients and telling them the same thing. It was literally the worst piece of advice I gave in my entire career. Within a year of O'Neill's speech, Alcoa profits would hit a record high by the time O'Neill retired in 2000. The company annual net income was 5 times larger than before he arrived, and its market capitalizations had risen by $27 billion. Someone who invested $1 million in Alcoa on the day O'Neill was hired would have earned another $1 million in dividends divide dividends while he hired the company, and the value of their stock would be 5 times bigger when he left. What's more, all all that growth occurred while Alcoa became one of the safest companies in the world. Before O'Neill arrived, almost every Alcoa plant had at least one incident per week. Once a safety plan was implemented, some facilities would go here without a single employee losing a workday due to an accident. The company worker injury rate fell to 1/20th the US average. So how did O'Neill make one of the largest, stoutest, and most potentially dangerous companies into a profit machine and a bastion of safety? By attacking one habit and then watching the changes ripple through the organization. I knew I knew I had a transform Alcoa. O'Neill told me.
Again, this is good word. By attacking one habit and then watching the changes ripple through the organization. Again, you can use this in daily vocab. Anyone? एक हैबिट हम चेंज करेंगे, उसके बाद एक के बाद एक ऑटोमेटिकली फॉलो करना शुरू कर जाएगा. ठीक है. बाय अटैकिंग वन हैबिट, एक हैबिट को यानी वर्कर सेफ्टी को अगर हम टारगेट करेंगे और देन वाचिंग द चेंज, फिर ग्रेजुअली जितना भी चेंजेस है वो ऑटोमेटिकली एक के बाद एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में होता चला जाएगा. तो रिपल में व्हाट, एक के बाद एक होना. ठीक है. Okay, this time Mansi, you read. Mansi, you are there, roll 11. Mansi, last call for you, otherwise I will be removing you. ऐसे भी बच्चे हैं आपकी क्लास में?
मैम रोल नंबर 113.
रोल नंबर 11. अच्छा, दो मानसी है तो
कंटिन्यू करें.
113 पढ़ने दीजिए. 113 को मानसी.
मैम फ्रॉम वेयर?
From here.
I knew I had to transform Alcoa. O'Neill told me. But you can't order people to change. That's not how the brain works. So I decided I was going to start by focusing on one thing. If I could start disrupting the habits around one thing, it would spread throughout the entire company. O'Neill's belief that some habits have the power to start a chain reaction, changing other habits as they move through an organization. Some habits, in the other words, matter more than others in remaking business and lives. These are keystone habits and they can influence how people work, eat, play, live, spend, and communicate. Keystone habits start a process that over time transforms everything. Keystone habits say that success does not depend on getting every single thing right, but instead relies on identifying a few key priorities and fashioning them into powerful levers. This book's first section explains how habits work, how they can be created and changed. However, where should our would-be habit master start? Understanding keystone habits holds the answer to that question. The habits that matter most are the ones that, when they start to shift, explode, and remake other patterns. Keystone habits explain Keystone habits explain how Michael Phelps became an Olympic champion and why some college students outperform their peers. They describe why some people, after years of trying, suddenly lose 40 pounds while becoming more productive at work and still getting home in time for dinner with their kids. And Keystone Habit explain how Alcoa became one of the best performing stock in the Dow Jones Index, while also becoming one of the safest places on earth. When Alcoa first approached O'Neill about becoming CEO, he was not sure he wanted the job. He had already earned plenty of money, and his wife liked Connecticut, where they lived.
प्लेस का नाम है जहाँ पे वो लोग रहते थे। तो यहाँ ये बात हो रही है कि यहाँ अल्कोआ जाने का कोई प्लान नहीं था, ठीक है। When Alcoa first approached O'Neill about becoming CEO, he wasn't sure he wanted the job. ठीक है, आगे आप लोग पढ़ेंगे कि ऑलरेडी वो सारा कुछ जितना भी समझिए कि सेल्फ स्टीम वाले लेवल पे पहुंच चुका था, ठीक है। तो ही वाज नॉट श्योर कि वो जॉब उसको चाहिए था या नहीं चाहिए था। ऑलरेडी यहाँ पे भी लिखा हुआ है, ऑलरेडी वो इनफ पैसा कमा चुका था, ठीक है। और उसकी वाइफ को पसंद था ये जगह टिकट, ठीक है, जहाँ पे वो लोग रहते थे। तो अपने होम सिटी में वो लोग चाह रहे थे, वो श्योर नहीं थे कि वो जॉब वो ज्वाइन करेंगे कि नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है। Proceed.
He had already earned plenty of money where they lived. They did not know anything about Pittsburgh, where Alcoa was headquartered. But before turning down the offer, O'Neill asked for some time to think it over. To help himself make the decision, he started working on a list of what would be his biggest priorities if he accepted the post. O'Neill had always been a big believer in lists, where how he organized his life. In college at Fresno State, where he finished his courses in a bit over 3 years, while also working 30 hours a week, O'Neill had drafted a list of everything he hoped to accomplish during his lifetime, including near the top, make a difference. After graduating in 1960, at a friend's encouragement, O'Neill picked up an application for a federal internship and, along with 300,000 others, took the government employment exam. 3,000 people were chosen for interviews. 300 of them were offered jobs. O'Neill was one. He started as a middle manager at the Veterans Administration and was told to learn about computer systems. All the while, O'Neill kept writing his lists, recording why some projects were more successful than others, which contractors delivered on time, which did not. He was promoted each year, and as he rose through the Vias bank, he made a name for himself as someone whose lists always seemed to include a bullet point that got a problem solved. By the mid 1960s, such skills were in high demand in Washington. DC Robert McNamara had recently remade the Pentagon by hiring a group of young mathematicians, statisticians, and computer programmers. President Johnson wanted some whiz kids of his own programmers of his own, so O'Neill was recruited to what eventually became known as the agencies within a decade. At age 38, he was promoted to deputy director and was suddenly among the most influential people in town.
Okay, done.
That's
From here, Ravi Shankar, you read. Ravi Shankar, 46.
Yes, ma'am.
That's when O'Neill education.
That's when O'Neill, ma'am.
Uh,
That's when O'Neill's education is organizational habits really started. One of his first assignment was to create an analytical framework for studying how government was spending money on healthcare. He quickly figured out that the government effort, which should have been guided by local schools and delegates, uh, priorities, were initiated driven by the BGA industrial process that, in many ways, operated like habits. Bureaucrats and politicians, rather than making decisions, were responding to cues with automatic routines in order to get rewards such as promotions or relaxations. It was habit loops spread across thousands of peoples and billions of dollars. For instance, after World War II, Congress had created a program to build community hospitals. A quarter century later, it was still coughing along, and so whenever lawmakers allocated new healthcare funds, bureaucrats immediately started building. The town where the new hospital were located didn't necessarily need more patent bids, but that didn't matter. What mattered was creating a big structure that a politicians could point while stumping for vote. Federal works would spend months debating blue or yellow curtains figures out if patent rooms should contain one or two television, designing nurses, stations, real pointless stuff. O'Neill told me most of time no one ever asked if the town wanted a hospital. The bureaucrats had gotten into a habit of solving every medical problems by building something so that a congressman could say, "Here's what I did." It didn't make any sense, but everybody did the same things against and against. Researchers have found institutional habits in almost every organi- organizations or company, they have uh,
What do you mean by scrutinize?
no one.
No one.
मैम इन्वेस्टिगेट करना.
Yes, investigating carefully. ठीक है, ये भी आपका बहुत ज्यादा बज़वर्ड है, न्यूज वगैरह में आप सुनेंगे. ठीक है, डेली वोकैब में यूज कर सकते हैं. Okay, proceed.
Individuals have habits, groups have routines, wrote the academic Geoffrey Hodgins, who has spent a career examining organizational patterns. Routines are the organizational analogs of habits. To O'Neill, these kind of habits seemed dangerous. We were basically feeding decisions making to a process that occurred without actually thinking. O'Neill said, but at other agencies where change was in the air, good organizational habits were creating success. Some department at NASA, for instance,
Manish Kumar, Rule 30.
Yes, ma'am. From where? Which line, ma'am?
First
Some
line.
departments. Some departments at NASA, for instance, were overhauling.
For example,
Instance, ma'am.
For instance. हाँ.
Yes, ma'am. Interns were overhauling themselves.
कई बार ये सुन चुकी हूँ, इसका मतलब यही पता ही है आपको. Instance, बीच में s है ना, instance, for instance, for example. Okay. पढ़िए.
यहीं से instance
हाँ.
were overhauling overhauling themselves by deliberately instituting organizational routines that encouraged engineers to take more risk, and when unmanned rockets explode on takeoff, department head would applaud so that everyone would know their division had tried and failed, but at least they had tried. Eventually, mission control filled with
Applause. Means to
applause.
Clapping.
Sometimes something expensive blow up. It became an organizational habit. Or take the Environmental Protection Agency, which was created in 1917, and the EPA first administration, William Ruxhouse.
EPA क्या है?
EPA मैम EP
परविंदर से पूछा जा रहा है.
मैम एनवायरमेंटल प्रोटेक्शन एजेंसी.
चलो गुड.
Aggression gets reward. By 1975, EPA was issuing more than 1,500 new environmental rules a year. Every time I looked at the different parts of the government, I found these habits that seemed to explain why things were either succeeding or failing. O'Neill told me the best agencies understood the importance of routine, and the worst agencies were headed by people who never thought about it, and then wondered why no one followed their orders. In 1977, after the 16 years in Washington, D.C., O'Neill decided it was time to leave. He was working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and his wife was trying to raising 4 children on her own. O'Neill resigned and landed a job with the International Paper, and the world's largest and paper company. He eventually became its president by then, and some of his old government friends were on Alcoa boards. When the company needed a new chief executive, they thought of him, which is how he ended up writing a list of his priorities. If he decided to take the job at the time Alcona was a struggling crisis, said the company workers weren't nibbles enough and the quality of its product was poor. But at the top of O'Neill's list, he didn't write the quality.
एक मिनट, एक यहाँ पे वर्ड है critics और दूसरा वर्ड है
critics. Nibbles. Critics.
At the time Alcoa was struggling, critics said the company's workers weren't nibble enough. क्या मतलब होता है nibble enough? Again, this is a good word, commonly used word. Not active enough. ज्यादा एक्टिव नहीं है वर्कर. क्रिटिक्स यानी जो कंप्लेन करते हैं, वो कंप्लेन करने वाले बोले कि कंपनी यानी अल्कोआ कंपनी के बारे में बात हो रही है कि कंपनी के वर्कर उतने एक्टिव नहीं है. ठीक है, तो अगेन ये वर्ड यूज कर सकते हैं आप लोग. निबल इनफ. चलिए प्रोसीड.
And the
एक मिनट, आशुतोष सिंह. Ashutosh 64.
Yes, ma'am.
Please read from here.
I'm from where?
But at the top of O'Neill's.
But at the top of O'Neill's list, he didn't write quality or efficiency as his biggest priority. At a company as big as old as Aloka, you can't flip a switch and expect everyone to work harder or produce more. The previous CEO has tried to mandate improvement and 15,000 employees had gone on strike. It got so bad they would bring dummies to the parking lot, dress them like managers and burn them in effigy.
Again, ये भी काफी आप न्यूज में सुनेंगे. अक्सर ऐसा होता है, पॉलिटिशियन का पुतला जलाया जाता है. तो पुतला क्या है? एफिजी. ठीक है, पुतला जलाना, burn them in effigy. Proceed.
Aloka was not a happy family.
बार-बार आप अलोका पढ़े हैं.
Alcoa was not a happy family. One person from that period told me it was more like the Manson family, but with the addition of molten metal. O'Neill figured his top priority. If he looked, the job would have to be something that everybody, unions and executive could agree with. Important. He needed focus. He needed a focus that would bring people together. That would give him leverage to change how people worked and communicated. I went to basic, he told me. Someone deserved to leave work as safely and they arrived, right? You shouldn't be scared that feeding your family is going to kill you. That's what I decided to focus on, changing everyone's safety habits. At the top, O'Neill listed, he wrote down safety and set an audacious goal. Zero injuries, not zero factory injuries, zero injuries period. That would be his commitment, no matter how much it costs. O'Neill decided to take the job.
ओके फाइन. यहाँ तक हमने क्या देखा कि ये जो डिसीजन है, ये जो उनका गोल था जीरो इंजरी का, ये ऑब्वियसली सारे लोग अग्री करेंगे. जब कोई भी एम्प्लॉय जॉब करने के लिए ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जाए तो उसको ये दिमाग में नहीं होना चाहिए कि आज हम जा रहे हैं, कल वापस आए या ना आए. ठीक है, तो ये डर दिमाग से निकालना था. तो इसीलिए बाकी सारे चीजों को फोकस नहीं करके ये बेसिकली फोकस कर रहे थे यूनियन पे. ठीक है, ताकि उन लोगों को थोड़ा बिलोंगिंगनेस फील हो. फाइन, ये अब तक का डिस्कशन है. और ऑब्वियसली यहाँ से अब हम लोग ये 3 डॉट याद रखिए. 127 यहाँ से नेक्स्ट पार्ट शुरू होगा. ये हम लोग करेंगे नेक्स्ट क्लास में. ऑलराइट, और याद रखने का जिम्मा किसी को दी हूं कि नहीं? वरना सब लोग एक दूसरे के ऊपर सोचते होंगे वो कर लेगा वो कर लेगा.
मैम याद हो गया.
किसको?
अमृता मैम.
ठीक है अमृता, याद रखिएगा। सारे सब्जेक्ट का सिलेबस तो खत्म हो गया होगा आप लोगों का?
नो मैम, अभी कहाँ। मैक्रो का बच्चा है और थोड़ा माइक्रो का भी।
मतलब इकोनॉमिक्स का बचा हुआ।
इकोनॉमिक्स ही बचा हुआ है ना, तो बाकी तो हो गया।
यस मैम।
सैटरडे तो हमारा क्लास नहीं हुआ था। MWF होता है ना। टुडे इज 30, 28 को मार्क ही हुआ था, राइट? ठीक है। और ये जो मार्किंग में गायब होने का जो सिस्टम है ना, इसको थोड़ा चेंज करिए। दिक्कत आप ही लोग को होगा। आदत सीख लिया, मतलब मार्की है तो गायब हो जाए, और जो लोग प्रेजेंट थे उसका फायदा मिलेगा।